And of course, just to make my life easier, 2 different size lug nuts. I had to put the car down, break them loose. They're being real nasty. In my mind, these actually aren't that bad. I don't know, we'll see what the other one looks like, but. Okay, Dodge Nitro, rear rotors, and brake brakes pads, I believe, need to be changed in this one. I already loosened up the caliper bracket with a pry bar. 2 18mm bolts hold the caliper bracket. It's just rust. That's all you're dealing with there. And in a perfect world, oh, we got some leakage there. That's what happens when your axle seal goes. It leaks all through your brakes and it causes your park brakes to grab real bad. There was some wetness on the backing plate here, but truthfully, I'm just going by what they told me. I didn't do the inspection on this car. It's hard to tell because it's been in a swamp up to about its door handles. So there's dirt and filth everywhere. Couldn't really see from the outside, but as soon as I got that off, you could tell. So we're gonna have to pull this axle and replace that seal, because that is a pretty bad leak. Okay, back at it here. Gonna get this axle seal fixed up. The left one's fine. Right one needs to go, and to do that, we gotta pull out the clips that hold the axle in inside the differential. I always wonder what people put these on with some days. Wow. That's harder than it needs to be. A lot of people do these where they leave the bottom end bolt in. And I find that's the worst way to do it. All we do here is get a wrench, apparently, because I can't get on that with that stupid track bar in the way. Oh, it's nice that there's no spare tire on this thing. I can get my head right in here. Ow. That's all kind of messed up. There we go. Again, that's why you leave the top bolt in. That's a heck of a lot cleaner and more organized than any other method. Well, that's some nice fluid in there. Someone's been keeping up on their maintenance. Leave the screwdriver in there and let it drain while I work on that top bolt. Well, there's the secret right there. It's called an E20. It's actually made for the reverse torques, but these, because they work on the flat side of the bolt instead of the corners, will get those things out even if it's loose without stripping them. Okay, all that's left now is to get that clip out. So now that we're in neutral, we can turn that into our little bolt right here, which has the pin on it. Probably 10. No, geez, that's an 8. Tiny little thing. Little 8mm. That pulls out the pin that holds in the bigger pin. That's supposed to come out. Okay, so the next thing you got to do here is push that axle in. There you go. That's all that holds your axle in. Colder weather, the stuff starts to turn like molasses. Syrup? You don't know what molasses. Most people, I guess, don't use a whole lot of molasses anymore. Okay, that axle's ready to come out now. Okay, so as you're pulling your axle out, be careful. The seal's already junked, but we don't want to damage anything else. Yeah, that seal's in pretty rough shape. That explains why the diff was so clean. They've been topping it up most likely because it's was starting to growl. Yeah, adding fluid is is great and all, but not if you don't address where your fluid's going. It's like I had my old Blazer had the original engine and the rear main seal was gone. I was doing a lot of highway driving, and that damn thing, I used to call it the self-changing oil, because it would just leak out about a liter or two every trip. And I was carrying cases of oil around with me. It's a big job to pull the motor out just to put a seal in, but eventually I did. All right, get that seal out of there. Simple as that. We'll clean this up a little bit, pop the new one in. The park brakes are starting to disintegrate. Yeah, you gotta be real careful around your ABS sensor here on these things. That ain't the right axle seal. And that's what happens when you let other people buy your parts, because that don't fit. Wrong seal. Okay, quick trip to the parts store here in town. Fortunately, they had the part in stock, so we got the right one now. You can do these without the driver if you're careful. Set it on like that. You just kind of tap around the outside. There you go, new seal. Okay, new seal's in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the park brakes on because it's a little easier to do without having to fight with the axle in your way. Clean these up in the parts washer first though. Okay, first thing you gotta put on here is your activating lever. All right, so the cable comes in back here. It's got a little stud that goes into that hole. It's all offset, so you can tell which side. The cable can only fit on this side, it can't go on that side. Okay, so in this case, the rotating part is on the bottom on this side. That just goes over the little pin here, and you rotate it in, and that kind of locks it into place. Now, it's pretty loose, so it could fall. We're hoping it won't. So what you're looking at is that. And then you put your little retainer hoo-ha in to help hold it because it's a mess. Dog. Okay, so you get your little retainer in there now. It doesn't look like it's very tight, but it does the job. And you got your spring, goes in like that. Much easier without the axle because it's kind of a tight fit here. So hardest part is getting all this to go in without knocking out one on the other side. Basically, you're looking at that, like this. And you can see where you got to put your retainers in, otherwise you're never going to be able to hold it. Don't worry about the adjuster or the bottom spring, we can get those in a minute. Okay, park brakes back on. You can see how everything goes. Both springs are on the outside. The little one is on the adjuster side. All right, big one back here. Your park brake lever that actually opens them up and you pull the cable here. See how that works. Both retainers are in. New shoes. Adjusters all the way in. We're going to throw the rotor on and off a couple of times later and just adjust it that way. We're going to put that axle in now. Okay, when you put your axle in, make sure you don't smash it. Last thing you want to do is smack your bearing or your brand new seal. Once you get to the carrier on the inside, just lift it up a bit. And you just kind of feel around till you line things up. A little wiggle to line up gears, and you're in. Okay, on the inside, our axle's pushed in all the way. Okay, you can clearly see the groove. It just slides in there unless you drop it like I just did. Okay, so you want to put it in, and once it's in, push your axle out. Okay, both axles are in place, the clips are there, they're both pushed out. All we need to do now is rotate the drive shaft to turn the carrier so that we can get the pin and the bolt back in. Now when you're doing that, you'll notice sometimes in this case, the pinions want to walk. So they won't be lined up here. So you kind of just reach in behind and without pinching your fingers, make sure the pinions are rotating with the carrier like that. Okay, make sure you got the side with the hole lined up. Once your pinions are lined up, you can just push it in. And once you get to about there, grab your bolt, put it in its hole, just a little bit of pressure. And there you go, you just gotta whittle things. Okay, and once that's in, you're fine, your pinions won't move anymore. Okay, tiny little bolt, don't go crazy. Okay, I already cleaned off this with a wire wheel on a drill. There's a little bit of rust down the bottom. This has been serviced before because there was no gasket and it was just held on with silicone. Okay, we got our diff cover put back on. I used just a film of silicone around the housing. I put the gasket on, that holds the gasket kind of in place. And I use another little film of silicone on the cover, put it on, threw my bolts on, nothing fancy. All right, 75 W140 for the Nitro rear axle. It's a little cold here, and this stuff's kind of like molasses right now. I had it in the house trying to warm it up. Honest, it was a bottle, not me. Okay, you know you're full when it starts to come out. And just push your little hoo-hitty in there. I can't believe that what we used to put in for plugs, and that's what they put in the 2008 Nitro. Okay, so that's what's involved in changing your axle seal. Okay, all I got left to do here is adjust this park brake and then throw the calipers back on it. So what I do is I'll put the rotor on and then feel for how much slop is there. You want your park brake to just barely touch when it's disengaged. All right, so I know that that's quite loose. I pull my rotor back off, make my adjustments now while it's easy, and then put my rotor back on, test it again, rinse and repeat till it's just barely touching, and then back it off a click or two. Okay, you want your park brake to not drag, but you want it to engage so you don't have to pull the lever all the way up. Okay, the other way to do it, which is technically I guess the right way, is removal of the rubber plug, which is there. Okay, you can get it from the back side. I got my finger on it right now. You pull that rubber plug out and then you go in behind with a screwdriver. There is a right tool, it's kind of got a curve on it, and you just hit that little adjuster right there. Okay, and the spring is what keeps it from rotating on its own. You can see it moving right there. And that's all you do to adjust your park brake. Last thing we gotta do here, put our caliper on. And, well, maybe clean out some of the bulrushes and fluid that's sitting in there. Okay, so the last thing here, put that caliper on. All I do is use a C-clamp to push the piston out just a bit to clear. The old rotor wasn't really worn that bad. One of these days they're going to invent a caliper that you can actually get an impact gun on to get the bolts out. So because we didn't actually do anything with the brakes itself, the pads are new on this thing, I didn't have to separate the caliper from the caliper bracket. And I just checked to make sure the pins weren't seized and they're all fine. So I'm just putting the whole thing back on as one unit. Okay, so there's how you do your rear rotors, park brake assembly, and change out your axle seal on 2008 Dodge Nitro. Hopefully this helped out somebody out there. Give us a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.